Hi, thanks for checking out my talk. I'm Matt Wilkins. I'm a postdoc at Vanderbilt's Collaborative for STEM Education and Outreach. And through that position, I've also been the resident scientist at a Nashville public middle school for the last 3 years. Today, I'm going to be talking about an in-press article at Animal Behaviour. You can check out the preprint at BioArchive. I want to start by thanking my co-authors, Karen Odom, Lauren Benedict, and Becca Safran, who made this work possible. Barn swallows are one of the most common birds in the world. There's 6 subspecies breed across the northern hemisphere. They've also become an important model species for sexual selection research, generating over 1,200 papers since 1980. From this work, we know that male visual traits such as tail length and ventral color are important sexual signals. And from my own work and that of Laszlo Garamzeghi and a few others, we know a fair amount about acoustic traits important in sexual selection and speciation. In contrast, female visual traits are rarely studied, and acoustic traits basically haven't been studied at all. Probably the most authoritative paper discussing female vocal signals is from 1971, where it says, the barn swallow courtship song is complex, variable, and is occasionally given by the female. So this seems to have influenced many guides, the descriptions. So Peterson says females also reported to sing. Birds of the World says both sexes sing the twitter warble, i.e. the same song. But Sibley, Stokes, Wikipedia, and most other references actually don't specify which sex sings, implying that only males sing. And in Anders Muller's Sexual Selection in the Barn Swallow, there's no mention of female vocalizations, so he talks about male song. So this fits into a broader pattern, limiting our understanding of female song, simply because there's an assumption that female songbirds don't sing. And this may be due to high latitude geographical research bias, ignoring the commonality of female song in the tropics, persistence of early assumptions from thinkers like Darwin, and no other reasons. But there's a slow paradigm shift happening. Naomi Langmore wrote an influential review in 1998 drawing attention to the deficit of study of female song and predicting that female singing was actually the ancestral state and the ancestor of all songbirds. And that song has been repeatedly lost and simplified in different lineages. This was actually borne out by Karen Odom et al. 2014 using modern phylogenetics. And in their analysis, a huge number of species, including barn swallows, were considered data deficient. So in a huge proportion of songbirds, we just know so very little about female song at all. What about barn swallows? In fact, females do sing a distinct song from males. I'll prove it. Here's a male song. And a female song. So even though the female song is shorter, it's still quite complex and has a lot of frequency modulations. Here's what it looks like in the field. So I think part of the reason that this has been missed until now is that females sing 10 times less than males, and only during the early breeding season. This is consistent with other findings in other species, but female song has not been lost, and selection has favored shorter, structurally complex, infrequent song. We go into a lot more detail in this and discuss the implications for the evolution of dimorphism, but I don't have time for that because I want to talk about the fact that this is new information about our world, but who has access to it? As we know, most of our time, effort, and billions of dollars every year are targeted at translating knowledge for other peer experts, in a way basically locking this information away in paywall journals that most of the public can't access or understand. If you're lucky, a journalist will write a popular science article that gets read by science-motivated adults, and many of us have volunteered at museums, so there are after-school and informal education efforts to do outreach. But these have little temporal exposure with the audience and no accountability basically for participants. Undergrads are an important audience because they get grades, and they need to pay attention, but only about 30% of the population goes to college. By far, our largest audience for new knowledge, representing every member of society at a critical time in their lives and their development, is K-12. Yet a few large education publishers control most materials, and scientists really don't have any infrastructure to transfer new knowledge to this key audience. So if we think about audience impact, we put most of our dissemination efforts into reaching a tiny audience or an already science literate audience. So this is why I am starting an education studio to basically help broader impacts become more impactful by bridging this gap. I'm using an ABS outreach grant to partially fund the translation of the current study into an interdisciplinary math lesson as a proof of concept. And the lesson connects 45 different standards across the Common Core ELA and math, Next Generation Science Standards, and the C3 Social Studies Standards. The lesson uses enciphered graph labels as a puzzle hook to get students engaged in a challenging data literacy task, and then visualizing the same data as a histogram, so connecting these two different types of visualizations. And then, so we're using real data to connect numerous standards within and across subjects, which are normally taught as if they're isolated concepts, which are easily forgettable, and wrapping the lesson in the narrative of a current scientific study, a real animal and real scientists. So the hope is that we can enable real learning and to give students learning experiences that they're excited about, they take home, they talk to their families, that actually change and empower them. I believe that we can create a new status quo by expanding translation of expert knowledge for K-12 audiences, and that this, connecting with this audience, is key to creating a society that understands and responds to the complex demands of our changing planet. That's all the time I have, but if you want to be part of this or want to hire me for your broader impacts, please let me know. Thanks.